guys, welcome back to Book Boozled. This is episode 2 where we will be discussing Belladonna. We're doing one book this time. This series is still ongoing. We'll read the next one next, but this is just going to be about the first one. Kat, how are you doing today?
Oh, fabulous. How about you?
I'm good. It's
always a good day when you're talking books, right?
Love to talk books. I have a glass of wine. I had a very long 9 to 5 today. So
I had a little bit of wine last night, so I'm sticking with the water for now.
Okay. Well, you're still repping, so that's good.
I am still repping. You gotta always rep.
Yes. All right. Well, I'm super excited to talk about this one. I flew through it.
I did too. I'll go ahead and say Adalyn Grace. She's so cute. Her TikToks are funny as hell. So check her out.
I haven't looked at her TikToks yet.
You haven't looked at her Instagram?
Not yet.
Speaking of Instagram, we did go ahead and introduce ourselves separately this week last week on our Instagram. Yeah. So if you're intrigued, go on and check us out there.
Yes, it is just Book Boozled. So
this, I would consider it more of a thriller fiction novel than, it didn't really have a ton of fantasy, which is fine by me. Like I said, we're going to do everything under the sun. I loved the characters. I loved the time setting in this. Like, take me back to those 1800s when they had the ball gowns and they had the big grand parties and it's champagne and they have the gloves going. Who doesn't love a good?
Well, when they actually had their actual coming out instead of just the cotillion shindig we had.
Fun fact for everybody listening: Kat and I met at a debutante coming out season. So for us, this is like a little bit of a throwback to some fun life.
We did not find our husbands that night. We just drank a lot. The dresses were very pretty.
I loved wearing a big old white wedding dress before I was getting married.
I know. You got to do, I did the big ball gown, and so for my actual wedding, it was more fitted. So
I did the exact same thing. So, two peas in a pod. Maybe that's why we're the same name, too.
Same name, same dresses, same book taste. I love it. Yeah. But yes, Belladonna flew by. I really liked the writing style of hers, and there was some great character development. It's only about 400 pages.
I'll give an overarching overview. So the character in this book, her name is Signa. She has had a very hard life. Her parents died when she was a baby. And so she's bounced around from home to home while growing up, waiting to be able to live on her own. Because, back in these times, you had to have people that were over you until you were she was 20 was when she was able to finally kind of her protection of sorts, rather than like the 18 we know of foster care. And we meet her and she's gone through, let's say she's gone through 4
or 5, I think.
4 or 5 of her
family members, acquaintances of the family.
Acquaintances, relatives.
They're just kind of her keepers, and the only reason they did let her into their home was because they were getting paid out of her inheritance to take care of her. So a lot of them,
but not all of them. Like Thorngrove was not cared about that, but some of them cared. Her grandmother didn't care. Her grandmother loved her, and that's why she chose her, but she was a grandmother and older. So great story. It has a lot of twists and turns that I was not prepared for, but also kind of called at the beginning as well.
Okay.
So if you're interested in thrillers and fun things like that, I would highly suggest reading this. I've already kind of maybe taken a snippet into the next book, Foxglove.
Okay.
I will say this will be our next book to review. Yes. So if you guys are interested in read Belladonna, go ahead and check out episode 3 as well. This will be, I've already gotten a sneak peek, and I think it'll be even better than Belladonna. So Kat, the praises that we're giving, just imagine.
Oh, I'm excited. I have not started it yet, but I plan to.
I can't help myself,
Oh, I know. It is good. This is the series that you want to immediately pick up the next one. So,
and I would argue that this could be a light summer read too. I think it would be good in that aspect, because it's not something that's going to be, I think she's only going to have 3 or 4 books total. So if you read at a decent pace, you could get through the whole series in a summer, but it is not as like, it gives you some fun party scenes, some fun little lips and tilts here. There is talk of death quite a bit, but it's also more like a mystery of solving deaths.
Yes. And there's a little bit of romance.
Yes. So that's what we do mean by thriller, not necessarily fantasy, but fiction, thriller. You're kind of doing a little bit of a sleuthing. If you like a good sleuthing book, I love a good sleuth. So definitely something that I could see a good summer read if you're not necessarily into the summer romances.
Yes, agreed. Because there is a little bit of romance and it is entertaining, but it is not the main plot point. So he does a really good job of having there be love interests, but not making that the only thing the book is about.
And I could argue that she really doesn't have a ton of love interests. She really only has one. Yeah. Okay, I could argue 2 for people who haven't read the book, but
you're totally fine. But yeah, no, if you haven't read it yet and you just want to listen to the first part of this episode, just for the spoiler-free little review, we both really enjoyed it. We both flew through it. Like Kat
I definitely want to read some more by this author. Like, she's somebody that I will pick up to have a good, light, refreshing read.
Yes, agreed. I like her. I would love to read some of her other stuff. Yeah.
All right. So with that, if you haven't read the book, maybe now's a good time to sneak out if you're going to read it, and go ahead and read it and catch back up to us when you're done, so we can all go over all the fun things and details inside.
Yes, I'm ready. All right. Spoiler time.
Spoilers.
I really did like this book.
It was a perfect book to go into after from Blood and Ash series.
Agreed.
It was something that was light and airy for me to read, especially after like I do feel like some of the fantasies have gotten very dark lately. There's lots of battles, lots of big scenes, lots of big in-depth things. I felt like this was just in-depth enough to still be light and airy, almost.
I totally agree. It was a very good like breath of fresh air after, reading From Blood and Ash. And then we both, Crescent City came out at the beginning of the year, and I tackled that whole series in January. And it's a lot. It's a lot of details. And it was smooth sailing. It was exactly what I needed after all of that.
I agree. We probably should have included that before we said spoilers, but here we are.
Did you like Signa? Do you like her character?
I did. I did, because she was very relatable to me in the fact that she was just like, I just wanted to be normal, but at the same time, she wasn't accepting of actually wanting to be normal. Because I think everybody wants to be normal, but what really is normal in life, and like your normal, my normal, everybody's normal is different. And I think that honestly, like, even if she wasn't flirting with death everywhere she went, she would still kind of have that, like, what is normal vibe of life. Because I think everybody hits that at some point, and then they just give up trying to chase that.
Yeah. Agreed. I totally agree. Normal is different to everybody. And, everybody has a hard time growing up and figuring out who they are. So it's a really cool to read and see kind of how her character development of her kind of ignoring of who she is and then kind of accepting it by the end of it. And like ready to go.
And I really do find it interesting that she was definitely flirting with death from a young age. Let's be real. She was flirting with death with her uncle. That was the second. I guess she was a ward then.
Yes.
And she was flirting with death with her uncle, with Charlotte, and trying when they were harvesting and going and rummaging in the woods for things that they could pluck and use. Which Charlotte kept doing until she was older. Signa just didn't. She went to an even worse warden. But I find it interesting, Signa had this very short love spell of a love from a family member, and it was short-lived, but she had such great memories and such great like high hopes. I do find it interesting. Her character held on to her hopes way better than I would have had I had 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 deaths.
Yeah.
5 deaths, 6
Agreed.
deaths.
Agreed.
Before I finally figured out what was happening.
Yeah, it was that etiquette book that her mom had given her that she just like kept going back to of like.
And I find it so funny that her mom was this big, strong-willed person that, like, you probably know, like, I have 1,000,001 books in my life. Like, I have like 1,000 great wines. Like, I have cutler.
Yeah.
You have the books that are your coffee table books.
Yeah.
That's probably what that was. The etiquette book was a coffee table book. Let's be real.
Oh, you're so right.
And it's the funny part to me is that she latched onto like this coffee table like book, and it's like this was my mother, and her mother was like this big, loud, boisterous, but beautiful, and like had that alpha bitch standing in society that like people didn't want to scare her, but you know they wanted to be in her good graces, but they were like she great.
Yeah. Agreed. She was just like this dominating force and kind of the exact opposite of what she thought. And then at the end, she kind of came, she was like, wow, my mom was like this different person. Like, it's okay for me to be different too. So that was really cool to kind of see them. I did think it was funny. This is like jump to the very end, just talking about her mom of like how she's literally bugging death constantly to tell her how her daughter.
That would so be me and my mother.
Yes. So it's like, she's not a quiet woman, and neither is Cigna. Like, she speaks her mind.
And as much as Cigna tries to push out of that person, she tries to be that meek, that very, you know, quiet, reserved, proper lady of the time. She can't do that. And you know what I really loved as well is when she did get to Thorngrove, they saw right through her trying to be that proper lady, and they embraced it. And I really think them embracing it, them being, you know, the Hawthorns in such high standing in society, and then embracing it and saying, please be you. I do think that genuinely helped her a lot. And I loved seeing that.
Yeah, it was really good. I loved watching just all of it. Like her trying to fight when she was hungry and wanted to eat the whole, like, I could never, if I'm hungry, I am going to eat
everything in sight.
And if somebody ever told me, like, tried to take a scone away from me, they'd lose a hand.
Oh, if you see me with the drum cheese, it is terrifying.
Like
the cookout boxes of quesadillas, they are all mine. Do not even try to take one.
I love it.
That's why I had
this Friday. Cardio. I had those Friday after my karaoke stint.
I'm preparing for those for Friday night for Christopher's birthday.
Did you guess that Silas was deaf? You guessed? I had no idea. I did not think that far ahead.
Okay, I thought about it was right about the stable boy when he first started agreeing to help her. When I was like, I'm a little off about this, and I started paying a little bit more attention. And she kept pointing out how his boots are always so nice, and I was like, well, maybe I picked up on that really quickly.
Yeah,
that was my like. I picked that up when he was picking her up from the carriages. I'm like, seems a little weird.
Fancy clothing.
Yeah, and I also kind of picked up a little bit that like nobody knew him, and he wasn't on any of the ledgers either. That's when I really knew who it was. When they said he wasn't on any ledger, I was like, he is dead.
See, I just went like, there's something like I thought he was the killer, and I think that's what she wanted me to think.
At first, I thought he was going to be Marjorie's son or Marjorie's like.
Yes, because when we were reading I thought so too, because when she was reading her diary and she was like, I met him in the stables. I was like, oh my God, it's Silas. Like I totally.
So by that point, I knew Silas was dead. I knew irrevocably Silas was dead.
Look at you. You are the super sleuth out of the two of us.
You can't pull a fast one on me very well. I'll be honest. I am that person that will ruin a movie without intentionally ruining the movie.
Zach does that, who is my husband, by the way, and I get so mad at him.
Well, you know what? I have an ADHD husband, and to be quite frank, once he hears that, he's gone within the 30 minutes of a movie anyways, unless we're at the theater. Like, I can't get him to sit still to save his damn life. But like,
I can see it.
So sometimes it's okay because I don't get as irritated when I have to pause the movie every 15 seconds for him to do whatever is happening and talking over it or taking a phone call and putting it on speaker. So sometimes it's okay because then I at least knew where this was going.
Oh God, husbands.
But I don't know. There's something about my intuition. Maybe one of my family members in the past was a witch or something. Who knows? I'm kidding.
I would love it.
I'm just gonna go there.
Missy would.
Missy is probably like, "Why are you talking about this?
Would you
Who
ever?
are you?"
That's so funny. So no, I did not know Silas was deaf. So this entire time, I was like, is she gonna pick the human boy, or is she gonna throw away everything and be with Death? And I was like, I really hope.
For me, what really solidified knowing Death was Silas was when Death didn't show his form to her when she asked. She asked to see his face. She asked to, see him. And he was like, "You're not ready for it yet." And that's when I was like, "You are Silas."
Yeah. Okay. Well, look at you. Maybe I'll try to be better in the next one. Because the next one we get to meet Fate, which I am very excited about.
I've already kind of met.
I know you've already read it. No spoilers here.
I'm so sorry, but it's gonna be so good. I'm only like 40 pages in, and I'm already like.
I'm finishing the one I'm on tonight, so I'm gonna start this one this week. I'm going to the lake. It's gonna be a good lake read.
I am going to be reading and working on my garden. Ironically, something funny. I was planning to plant foxglove in my garden this year.
You.
So
do not plant Belladonna because it will kill somebody.
Can it kill my mole that my husband cannot get rid of? Because if so, might be worth it. I'm kidding.
Kill all the deer too, though.
Oh, we don't want the deer to die. So
yeah,
I like deer people. Deer people are great.
Yeah. Anyway,
I love Blythe.
Oh, Blythe. Okay, we can talk about Blythe first.
Loved Blythe. I can just see her coming into this giant character in the next book. Mainly because I will give a little spoiler. I do know we get Blythe's perspective in the next book, which is awesome. That's the only little spoiler I'll give about that one. But I think Blythe has so much life and vivaciousness and vitality in her, and I'm ready to see that come through now that she's not sick.
Agreed. She's a little firecracker. I'm very excited.
I love a firecracker. Firecrackers are the best.
For sure. No, I think just like even when she was sick, like just the attitude, I loved it. She was just so little snips snarky.
I was just like, get it, girl.
Like I loved it. I loved it. So I'm really excited to get to know her more.
Yeah.
For sure. And then Elijah.
I really appreciated Elijah's character development.
I did too.
I felt like his character was so rich in what you knew about him. I think you honestly knew more about him than Signa at some points.
Yeah. Just coming into him the first time and it being this party and he's just hammered because his wife just died. And
it had been a year that his wife had died.
And then but
at the same time, you could just tell, like, he was just this huge grieving character and grieving soul. And I mean, how beautiful is it that this kind of love just, I guess it's not beautiful. It's tragically beautiful that this kind of love, affected him so much. But at the same time, like, he had that love, which I think is beautiful because, I mean, how many people find that? But I love the fact that you meet him as this drunken character and you start to get these pieces of his past and his history and who he was as a man from the other characters before you start to see him kind of come into his own and have this relationship start with Signa. I think his relationship with Signa really was kind of what brought him out of that dark cloud a little bit because he saw his wife in her eyeballs every time he spoke to her.
The different color eyes.
Yes, and I think that really brought Elijah out of his like startling drunken stupors.
Yeah, because he totally forgot he even brought her in to be a ward, and he was like,
"Are you?" Didn't.
I know, but he was like, "Are you Lillian? Come back to haunt me." And they were like, "No." But
he knew Lillian was still in the manor.
Oh, for sure, and she was.
And that's why he got so drunk all the time because he could hear her crying.
Yes, and that was wild. But so his character arc of going from this grieving person whose daughter is also sick to, Signa coming in and helping Blythe and figuring it out, and like he didn't even like question when Signa was like, "It's poison." Like, it's Belladonna. Like, we have to fix it. We have to figure out who it is. He's like, all right, I'm on board. I believe you. And
I do think that, like, he had already given up on Blythe before Signa came.
I think so.
Until Cigna helped Blythe the first time. And that's why I think he was so accepting of what Cigna was saying, was because Cigna helped Blythe like twice before she went to Elijah and said, no, it's Belladonna. You're getting poisoned. You need to help.
Agreed.
So I do think that like she had had this kind of proven track record of helping almost. And Elijah might not have realized it at first, but I think like deep down in his soul, he realized that she was there to help.
Yes, absolutely. Because I mean, the one time that she saved Blythe, like she was full on having a conversation with death in front of everybody, and everybody was just like, something weird's going on, but we're gonna believe her.
But nobody pointed it out. Nobody pointed that out. I do find that odd that nobody pointed it out when Cigna looked like she was talking to herself.
I think she mentioned like in passing that they were all looking at her like she was crazy, but it was like one sentence, and then we moved on, and she saved Blythe, and everybody was just like, all right, this girl's a little wacky, but she
we'll take her.
Gets it done. So, but I really loved watching Elijah come back to life with that. And
I also respect a lot his decision to sell Grace. I thought he had such good intentions behind it. And I do think that was selling Grace was what really was going to bring him out of his stupor. I think he blamed himself for being at Grace so much for Lillian dying that I think that was just the perfect little bow on the top of him being like, yeah, I'm done with that chapter. We're moving on. I'm accepting my fate now.
It is a very self-aware move. He was very self-aware.
For someone who was constantly drunk, it was super self-aware.
Yes. And him just knowing that the reason he didn't get to spend the last moments with his wife was because he was busy working and he just trusted the doctors. And for him to be self-aware enough to be like, I don't want my son to do the exact same thing. That's a big move.
And for him to be like, I don't want my daughter to not have anybody as well.
So I think that was very smart. Who else could we talk about before we get into Percy?
Marjorie.
Marjorie.
It'll be a perfect lead-in to Percy.
Yes.
Marjorie. I kind of feel a little bad for her, but also at the same time, I could see her as being certifiably insane.
Yeah. I get kind of showing up to the house with Percy because, big spoiler, Percy's her son with Elijah.
But it was before Elijah had gotten with Lillian.
Yes. No, there was no Elijah never cheated on Lillian. Yeah. It was just I don't know if I would have made the same move. I mean, I don't know. I
think she had nowhere else to go. I mean, she
got kicked out.
With her family, but at the same time, I think it was worse that she stayed there.
Yeah. Agreed. And I get it. She wanted to be near her son, but at the same time, she should not have told Percy. That did everything. That was the nail in the coffin, because then he turned around and he killed he tried to kill her. He tried to kill Marjorie.
He tried to kill Marjorie because he didn't want the question of his lineage so that he could take over Grace. I mean, his whole reason for killing everybody was to be able to run Grace. And I think that's very interesting. I mean, the character arc there, you see Percy as this person who, is happy and just this carefree, lollygagging, little frat boy.
Yeah, frat boy is a good way to describe Percy.
But back to Marjorie. I don't think that what she did was the right move, but I think she thought it was the right move.
She just couldn't put it in anymore.
It's hard as a mom, but at the same time, had she not approached Percy, everybody at Thorn Grove would have still been alive.
Yeah, Lillian would have still been alive. Everybody would have been none the wiser. Nobody had guessed it at that point, and he was a grown man. Nobody had ever said, oh, Percy looks like Marjorie's son. And who's to say it never would happen, but it hadn't happened yet. But then the second he learned it, he saw the similarities, and he thought his life was over.
But nobody had questioned it until then, and he was over 20 years old. I mean, because he was older than Cigna, and Cigna was turning 20 in 3 months from that. So I do think it's interesting that he took this drastic of a turn because he didn't see himself until she told them. And I don't know that I necessarily respect her telling him.
I know. And it's hard, not having kids, but at the same time, you want the best for them, but then you do something that completely derails their life. It was a selfish move, I think.
It was a very selfish move. I agree. Because, like, by that point, Lillian wasn't dying. Lillian wasn't dead when she told him. Like, what was she or him to gain out of that conversation from her?
Right.
The other thing that I want to get into is also governesses. Back in that day and time, your governess taught your ladies how to be ladies. Like, I find it very interesting that a cast aside lady of society was a governess at one of the largest societal families.
I think that was just Elijah feeling bad and giving
I think it was him feeling bad, but I also think that could also be seen as a little bit of dropping the gun on protecting your family, because I mean, that could have made them.
Yeah, he should. I mean, I understand employing her. Like, I absolutely understand she had nowhere else to go, but maybe not make her such a prominent figure in the household.
I agree.
That interacts with everyone on a daily basis.
Yes.
So.
Very interesting.
Yes. We get into
Percy.
Mr. Percy, who is a hot mess.
He's more than a hot mess.
Yeah. We meet him and he's at a party. He's at the party when she gets there, and he's
trying to act like this, like, perfect son, this perfect society character who is trying to continue on the family legacy, trying to continue on exactly how they've been for generations. And then his dad is this drunken, stupid mess because his wife's dead and he's hearing her ghost cry all the time. And his dad smashes cake in his face. That's the first interaction we have with him.
Yeah. Like, you feel bad for Percy when you first meet him. You think he's just like pitiful guy who's just under his dad and can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
But then you also see that he does not interact with the staff. Like, he very much is a part of the mindset that he is above everybody else.
He is very straight-laced.
So,
but at the same time, he's this goofy little character.
Yeah, when he finally
tripping over his own 2 feet in my mind, kind of guy. Don't we love a good tripping over the 2 feet kind of guy?
Yes, we do, when they're real and not fake murdering everybody. But
his whole intention of murdering was to get rid of Marjorie.
Yes, which I don't fully understand. So he went and wanted to kill Marjorie, and his mom accidentally drank the tea. I don't understand why he kept poisoning his mom. Well, he could have just been a bad batch of tea, and that could have been.
If you went in here, though, I agree. But if you went in here, though, he said he put so much in that he knew, like, it was going to take her. And then at that point, he said he thought he was going to get caught, so he slowly tried to take her. I agree. It was demented thinking. And clearly somebody who didn't know about Belladonna. And
she could have recovered. It's like she drank the one thing of tea, and if it didn't kill her, she could have lived. But he just kept poisoning.
And he did it to make her not have those problems anymore. But I honestly think that shows Percy's intelligence. There's not a lot of intelligence there.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of deep intelligence there. There's only societal intelligence.
He's acting like a child, because then he goes and he poisons his sister to just make this, to try and bring his dad closer to him.
Yes. And then I have this question, like, if he was starting to poison people because he didn't want them to see that Marjorie with his mother with Elijah, why would he not continue to poison Marjorie at that point? Why did he give up on that? Because if that was the whole reason for starting it, then why are we now moving on to your sister to make your dad love you more? That is somebody who is just not in their right mind to me. Like, how do you not think, well, I'm going to get rid of this person because this could bring down my whole entire life, to now all of a sudden not giving a crap about that person?
It was just very immature thinking. It was very just desperate. Look at me. He thought he could drive his father into his arms by poisoning his sister, and him seeing that it wasn't working. I just don't understand why he didn't let his sister get better.
I don't think he thought he could at that point, because I mean, he thought he was going to kill his mother, He thought the Belladonna wasn't going to just leave her system.
Yeah.
So I guess at that point he assumed he couldn't just kill her. But at the same time, like, he was just wanting his dad to get over Blythe and his mom at that point and just choose him and give everything over to him. And just, I don't know what his intentions were at that point. Was he just going to, like, choose to let his dad kill himself too? Because at that point, like, you're taking everybody away from him.
Percy just wanted that position in society. He wanted the money. He wanted he wanted the notoriety he wanted that straight-laced high society life. And he was not okay with anything ever getting in the way of it, or something he thought would get in the way of it.
Which I do also find very interesting that he got close with Byron in that reason too, because wouldn't Byron also be a threat to him taking that over already? We do know it's always passed on to the first sons.
Yes.
Which is normal, but if his dad hadn't passed it on to him yet, would it not go to Byron first before Percy?
Yes, we were just so deep in the story that Percy knew that his dad was not selling to Byron, that he was not going to do it. So at that point, it was kind of just both of them trying to convince the dad to do something.
Right. That's fair.
Because Byron didn't have kids either. So if he had worked, that he would have run it until Percy was ready to run it, and Byron would still get money from it because it's a family affair.
That's true. I find Byron a little pesky little gnat. I'm just like, his character wasn't very developed.
No, but maybe we'll see a little more of it. But he was fine. I mean, he's just the brother that doesn't get it. The whole like love triangle between Elijah, Byron, and Lillian was a little strange to me. I'm not entirely sure.
I wish we had gotten a little more information on that.
Maybe we'll get some flashbacks. Who knows?
Oh,
I doubt it.
To be honest, I don't think we will.
Yeah.
Now that I'm a little sneak peeky in, but I don't think we will. But I think this book, you could have read Belladonna as a standalone book, 100%. Unless the last 3 pages.
Yeah, just cut off the last chapter.
I loved the last 3 pages. Yes. But this could have easily been a standalone book. And I do think that's something that we can tell people easily. Mm-hmm. You don't have to read Foxglove. And that's why I think that this is also a good summer read, because if you don't want to, you don't have to. But
agreed.
I want to.
Agreed. Well, my last question is, did you guess? You guessed Percy. I did not guess Percy. Did you guess Percy?
I thought it was going to be Marjorie.
Okay.
I thought it was Marjorie killing Lillian to take her place, to be quite frank. Mm-hmm. I did not guess Percy up until they sent Marjorie away.
Yeah.
That's when I started guessing, well, who else could it be? You know, I'm like,
I thought it was Byron for a minute, just the whole, like, if I can't have her, nobody can. And then it was you still won't sell me the company, like, and now I'm going to take your daughter. I thought it was just, like, a very evil brother.
I thought it was Byron or Marjorie. I really had Marjorie as the guilted lover more.
Yeah.
Who doesn't love a guilted lover trope, you know? And watching the guilted lover get taken down.
You might know it's coming, but it's still fun to watch.
I always love a good ruin the crazy one moment. Yeah. But Percy was a little bit of a throw for me, and that's why I like this, because I still felt a little thrown in this book.
I did. His anger at the end, definitely. I was like, oh crap. I was like flipping through the pages.
Find it interesting that we don't have a fully wrapped up bow that Percy is gone.
Yeah, well, I think it's that because Death had talked about earlier in the book that, you know, the afterlife of where everybody goes, it's such a happy place. The evil people just.
No, I'm not talking about after death. I'm talking about with like Charlotte in society.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that I think Death just took him away. Like, he won't be reincarnated. He doesn't get the happy ever after life. We know that part. Death was like, I'm taking care of him. It's done. He's done. I mean, when you poison 2 people and like kick off your main mother, like, I don't think it's
time to.
That's fair. Well, fair. I'm not God though, so take that as well. And I'm not Death, nor am I Fate.
Right.
But I find it interesting that instead of saying Percy died in the fire of the garden, Percy ran away.
Yeah, well, there was no body.
Yeah, but in a fire, do you think you're going to find a party? If it's a fire?
I mean, maybe. I don't know. I do not know all of it.
So I do find it interesting that, if a fire is severe enough, let's talk about it, cremation.
Sure.
Bodies can get cremated. So I do find it interesting they didn't just up the level of the fire of the garden almost and just say his body was there. Body was cremated.
I don't know all the science behind it, but I think it could have been something that they used, but instead they just said he ran off. So,
yeah. And I do think that might come back to bite them in the haunches a little bit in the next book, maybe. I don't know. But Charlotte doesn't seem like she was going to let it go, because it seemed like, Charlotte was a character that was desperate to save her spot in society, and she was desperate to, get that good match, and she had it with Percy. She had it in the clutches of her palms.
Because they were
she
saying
wasn't going to let Cigna ruin it, and she wasn't going to let anybody take that away from her, and now Percy's gone.
Yeah. And they even said in the book that Charlotte doesn't fully believe that Percy just ran.
They said it at the last chapter, if you
last
remember.
The last chapter.
She was giving her looks, and she was asking about Percy, and she was asking where he went.
Yeah.
I do find it interesting that they didn't just let him go, especially because he was the guy setting the fires.
Yeah. Yeah.
He set the fire in the library. He has to be the guy that set the fire in the library. Right?
I think
they said he was.
Yes.
They said he was
the guy fire in the library. Because he wanted to be the one to come in and save everybody.
Yeah. I do find it interesting. He was just going to burn the garden to the ground, thinking that would get rid of his mother's ghost.
He loved him some fires.
A little arsenic.
Little arsonist Percy. But I think we're gonna eventually have to see them confess that Percy did it. Because I want to. I mean, I know they're trying to save everybody's feelings and everything, and it kind of would.
But at the same time, I don't think that they have to say that he did it, because they still said Lillian died of an illness.
Yeah, but they know that Blythe was being poisoned, and it was the same thing. So they know.
But Elijah knew. Remember, Elijah knows that it was his son that did it. So I think as long as Elijah knows and Cigna knows, then it's fine.
Because they didn't tell Marjorie.
They didn't tell Marjorie, and they didn't tell Blythe.
Yeah. I think it's easier. I mean,
I think it's easier to just let Cigna and Elijah handle that burden. Mm-hmm. And I do think that they'll just let that keep going on.
Yeah, because they blamed Percy running off, because when he poisoned himself, he had the hallucination of seeing his mom. So they just kind of blamed it on the hallucination, kind of drove him to run off.
But I don't think any societal straight-laced man would run away from that either. They wouldn't run away from their duties. So it doesn't fit the nature of Percy. And I do think that Blythe might start questioning it in the future. Yeah. But at the same time, I really do think that if they really wanted to wrap up those strings, he could have died in the garden.
I think so too. I think so. Do we want to touch on Cigna and Death's relationship? It's our last part.
I am interested to see how speaking of threesomes, I'm interested to see how Fate, Death, and Cigna come together.
It's gonna be wild, yeah. I like
something happening there.
I know, I'm ready to read about that. I liked how you got to watch her and Death's relationship kind of progress. I was not amused at the end where he tried to play protector, when he was like, you don't need to be with me. You need to go live your life. And she was like, let me make my own decisions, please. It's like, thank you.
I agree. I also do feel like this was kind of an enemies to lovers, with
a little bit. Yeah.
Cigna and her mans. Little enemies to lovers, because when you first meet Death, she's cursing his name, spitting, shouting at him.
Yeah.
And she accidentally kills her, her warden, her aunt at the time, because she's so mad at Death. And she's like, you take everything away from me, you can't stay. And then here you have this man who takes her away in 2 days' time, which I thought it was interesting. She didn't even question that at all.
No, not really. She was like, okay.
Yeah, she's like, okay, go in there. Sounds good. Bye.
Yeah, because it was.
I mean, it would take more than 2 days to get the news out of town of her aunt's death and to find a new warden or.
Agreed. He totally did. Yeah, I mean, he admitted he did it all.
Yeah, I mean, he admitted that he was going to have a surprise for her in 2 days. I am surprised she didn't.
I think she was just so
feeling that he was the one doing this.
Yes, and I think she just was stunted in thinking, because she was always fending for herself, right? So she never thought to view things from anybody else's point of view, because the way Death explains it is he was always looking out for her from these horrible people who were supposed to be taking care of her. And she only saw it as like this horrible, horrible thing that's happening to her. And she blamed Death for it, when in reality, he's saving her from, predators.
Right. But I do see both people's side on that. Like, Death was like, these are horrible people. I'm getting you out of the situation. But she's like, you're taking me to even worse situations with each time until she gets to Thorngrove. And until she can kind of change the poisoning in the hands of fate that are already going on there, which is why it's so interesting that fate enters the chat at the end, because she is changing fate when she gets to Thorngrove. And Death was changing the fate because she wasn't supposed to come to Thorngrove until Blythe was already gone. And they admit that very early on. I find it so very interesting, because Elijah was so overshadowed by guilt and, just this sadness of losing Lillian. So I think it's interesting, and I think that fate will have a large hand in the next book.
Yeah, sure. She did the times where she, like with her aunt, her touching her aunt, and then that also night that Blythe was sick and she was like, I don't care who you have to kill, you're not killing her tonight. Like, she changed fate a couple times with making Death take people before their time. So I think fate, I know you've already started, but my little guess is fate is not a fan.
I don't think fate is a fan. And I will say, little spoiler, the first chapter is in Fate's point of view.
Okay, that's not a bad spoiler. That's fine.
Nope.
I'm excited to see their relationship, because Death is going to be super protective.
Yes, but at the same time, I don't think he can be either.
Yeah, he's gone a lot.
Yeah. Death and Signet's relationship, though, I do think it has a lot of good basis for it could be a great relationship. It really took Death taking her towards the bridge where souls go over into eternity, to where she couldn't come back before she fully accepted death. Like, let's be real, Signet was so stubborn-headed, and I loved every moment of it.
I know.
Because I was tired of not a stubborn-headedness person after for Blood and Ash, but she was so stubborn-headed, and she couldn't see that he was trying to help. Whether his intentions were good or not, his intentions were good, but whether the outcome of his intentions were good or bad, neither here nor there. But he had the intention of doing good by her. And I do find it very interesting. It's a little odd to me that Death was so enamored by her at birth.
Yeah, agreed. I think it probably started out as more of a like, what's going on here? Because they said that she was trying to, it took until 19 for her to actually have like a full conversation with him. She was fascinated with seeing him, which is why she would do the crazy things that should have killed her. But it took 19 years for her to have a conversation.
At the same time, he admitted that he was watching over her from the moment her parents died until she could fully interact with him. And I could argue that like 19 was when it first started becoming a little bit more, but I could argue that he probably fell in love with her before then.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Watching somebody like that. Yeah.
Also, because how would you go to take somebody to this magical manor of high society that's way up here after being like literally in the slums and not eating for days with this other, aunt?
Absolutely.
I totally agree. Do that out of
it did not. He was in love with her long before 19. I just think it's interesting that it took 19 years for them to have like a full conversation.
I don't, because it had to be fully on Signet, and I don't think that Signet was really accepting up until that point that she was different, because she still wanted to be that perfect societal woman. And, you know, her grandmother put these grand gestures in her head of these balls that her mom would throw and everything. And she just wanted to be just like her mom that was perfect in society and threw all these balls. And then, you know, you get to the uncle that is sleeping around with half the town and she's just trying to keep it straight.
Right.
And then I don't think it wasn't until she got to her aunt where she really was like,
all right,
forget this.
Yeah.
I'm done with this shit.
I agree. Yeah. I agree. But I really enjoyed it. I'm very excited to read the next one. I've got it here as well.
I'm very excited. I'm only, like I said, like 35 pages in. I want to see, take your duster off. Let me see it.
It's beautiful.
Look how beautiful this one is.
Ours are different.
Yeah. So mine is a special exclusive edition to Barnes & Noble, but this is a different exclusive edition. So I got 2 of them.
Wow.
But how pretty that is.
What does that even say?
Lord, I don't even know why we have a duster. That is beautiful.
What does yours say on it?
It said that foxglove is most lethal just before the seeds ripen.
Okay. Mine says the same thing.
Yeah.
What does yours have on the back? Okay. So it's just a different color, it seems.
Yes. Okay. And I am interested to see if this is fate or death.
I'm excited. It's going to be good. It's going to be very good.
And I'll talk to you off the podcast, but I have a little snippet I'm excited to talk to you about that won't spoil anything, but something you and I want to talk about so we can deep dive into it.
Sign off here then. No, but this was super fun. We're very excited to be podcasting. Again,
episode 2 wrap up.
Episode 2. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok. We're working on all the things, getting everything together.
Don't fret, you'll see us every Tuesday.
Yes,
or
every Tuesday on Spotify and YouTube. So I will thank you guys for listening.
Absolutely. Stick around after the Belladonna and Foxglove. The 3rd book of the Belladonna series is not out yet. So we are going to go ahead and get into maybe a quick summer read after this so that all these people about to go on vacation in May, June, July will have a little good summer read review right before they head out. Yes. And then we might dip our toes in a couple other different genres before we get going for the year.
Absolutely. Awesome.
Yay. See you next time, Kat.
See you next time, Kat.